Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the last session of today's morning session. The last keynote speech will be presented by Professor Wing-Huen Ip. Professor Ip is a professor from National Central University. The topic of his speech today is to dream the impossible dream. And I feel most honored to have Professor Song Yaoting as the moderator of this session. Professor Song Yaoting is a professor from Department of Education, Psychology, and Counseling here in National Taiwan Normal University. He is also the Executive Vice President of National Taiwan Normal University and CEO of Office of Higher Education Sprout Project of National Taiwan Normal University. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Professor Song Yaoting.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to preside over this section of Professor Ye Yongxuan's keynote speech. Professor Ye is now the professor of the Institute of Astronomy and Space Sciences of the National Central University. He is also now the academia of the Academia Sinica, Taiwan, and also the fellows of many distinguished societies. Professor Ye's research fields include cometary physics, solar system, and planetary sciences. Based on his dedicated work and expertise, Professor Ye has published over 60 articles in the renowned journals Science and Nature. I believe this outstanding achievement is the dream of many scientists. In addition to his outstanding scientific studies, Professor Ye has also contributed a lot in the practices of exploring the space. For example, he is one of the first proposers to explore the Mars. And he has also joined a lot of projects, such as the Galileo to Jupiter or Rosetta projects. Because of his excellent achievement and outstanding contribution to the practices, the NASA awarded him the Exceptional Public Service Medal, and recently he was awarded the Gerard and the Kuiper Prize by the American Astronomical Society. Today, Professor Ye is gonna give us a speech entitled Dream the Impossible Dream. I believe all of us will be inspired by Professor Ye's speech. Let's welcome Professor Ye Yongxuan. 老师您可以坐着啊，我就先，我下去听。
Yeah, thank you so much, Vice President Song's introduction. It is indeed my great pleasure and my great privilege and honor to be invited to this meeting, to this important meeting, and to give a talk at this meeting, on this occasion. So to me, as you have heard from Vice President Song's introduction, I'm just a very simple astronomer and not a professional educator. So coming to this meeting to give a talk is almost like a impossible dream, and that's why the title, right? But I would like to take this occasion in any event to tell you my association with science education. Since I have said that coming here is like an impossible dream, and then my talk would have a little bit on having the students, young people, to have dreams. on doing things. So I want to quote at the beginning a saying from a statement from T.E. Lawrence, who is also, we call him Lawrence of Arabia. And what he said is that all men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their minds awake to find that it was just a vanity. But the dreamers of day are dangerous men, that they may add their dreams with open eyes to make it possible. So basically, we want our young students to have daydreams, to make things, impossible things to become true. So I would like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about a project I'm working on with my colleagues at National Central University. The project is called Taiwan Top Science Student, and abbreviation we call it TTSS. In Chinese is Taiwan 科学特殊人才提升计划. And in that project, interestingly enough, we want to ask the question, what is the failure, our failure in gifted education in Taiwan? You won't be surprised, but we are asking that question to ourselves. And from then on, I will tell you about there are not just one single type of giftedness, but many types. And here I will take this opportunity to describe to you what I have learned. There are basically two types of giftedness that we should be aware of. And then I tell you a little bit about the lesson I learned from this conference, and then some future plan, hopefully with the cooperation of the support of Ministry of Education, some of the future plan could be realized. So the starting point of our project is based to ask the question that, look, we know that over the years, our youngsters, our high school students, they have done extremely well in international competition, like Olympiads, physics Olympiads, mathematics Olympiads, chemistry Olympiads. They always won medals coming home, and they always headline, you know, because they're the pride of our nation, saying that, look, how well our education is, and then hence that they could do so well in international competition. That's a fact, isn't it? I mean, there's no question about it. And we look at the record indeed. This is the ranking, you know, over the years. The record is only at 2019. I think it's the newest one, but the newest one perhaps will not change that much. Then we see that as far as the physics Olympia is concerned, we see that Taiwan is always top 5, isn't it? Together with South Korea. Okay, that's fine, yeah. And indeed, and here, can you see that the pointer? Can you see it? All right. I cannot see it myself. But anyway, you can see that with China, Taiwan, and South Korea, we are always, you know, the top 3. On our hand, we check, we look, you know, look down. Then here's Japan. Yeah, Japan always hasn't done too well in physics, right? In fact, Japan hasn't done that well in other items of competition either. So we think that, okay, that means that we are doing better even, you know, than the other countries, certainly. But then we look at the Nobel Prize. And over the last 20 years, since the 21st century, Japan on average won Nobel Prize every year, every single year. And if you look at this record, it says that since 2000, the ranking of the country which have won Nobel Prize, first, number 1 is America, United States, to be followed by Japan. In fact, most of the Japan's Nobel Prize have been won over the last 20 years. You count them, inside Japan, we have 17, and 4 Japanese scientists or novelists, one, so together 21 up to this year. So comparison, you might ask, how come our high school students have been doing too well, but how come they have done nothing in this area? This is the question I ask. I ask myself, and then I have the opportunity to ask Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Education says, oh, that is an interesting question. Why don't you take a look at it, all right? So it's at the beginning of our project. But then, the Ministry of Education actually have more problems of their own. So when we start our project, they send us a instruction saying that, by the way, we have problems. We have problems. What kind of problems that they want us to deal with them, that is, we have gender gap in STEM. Yeah. Can you find a way, to help? And please also do a survey of gifted education in Taiwan and abroad with a comparison, right, if you could. And then from doing that, can you also help to identify the characteristics or the traits, so to say, of the gifted students so that we could just round them up, and then educate them and push them to be top of the, of the elite. And then please also do, if you see something, that we have not done too well or missing, please do some troubleshooting of our science education system. So this is very basic, fundamental to our Ministry of Education, right? And of course, by doing this, the next step we'll be talking about Nobel Prize that we could understand. So because of that, we carry on our project, which is called Taiwan Top Science Student Project. In Chinese, it's the Taiwan 科学特殊人才提升计划. And then over the last 2.5 years, we have developed a number of projects, so to say. Under this big program, we have a number of projects. You can see them here. And if you're interested, and I will be very happy to describe them to you. But here I want to pick out a few of them, which are specific, to this today's this meeting, and also specific to some of the points that the Ministry of Education want us to address. The first thing is about the gender gap in STEM. So in our program, we have 3 projects dealing with the gender gap in STEM. The first thing is that we have a forum. We call that Gaia STEM lecture series. The idea is that we invite female or women scientists or engineers. So far, because for the last year or so, we could only do it online. And in fact, most of the lecturers, the speakers, are from outside Taiwan. So we invited them to give online lectures. This one program, the idea is that with our students, have time, this is a monthly lecture, have time to look at this outstanding women scientists, and they pick up, and then they have, like this person, like that person, they become their role model, so to say. The second one we have is that we want to study, we have a general physics test to test that for the first year, freshmen, undergraduate students, before they take the general physics class, we give them a test. And after they finish the course, we also give them a test. The idea is to test, the difference between male and female students in their attitude, in their, so to say, efficacy, how they think, after taking 1 year or a term one semester the general physics. Do they become physics lover, or they think that they don't belong to this, this class of physics? So we are doing this, we have done it for 2 years already, and we have accumulated some statistics, and interesting statistics. The other things that we are also thinking that the number 3 is that we have a program called on the winter school. We have a winter school for high school female students. The idea is for AI. AI so far is a very exclusive career, mostly for men and engineers. We think, however, that it has to be diverse and inclusive. Therefore, we want to make a point, say that in Taiwan, we want to push for women students or women scientists to go into AI to make a difference, so to say. So we have these three projects, which I'm going to briefly describe to you. Now, this is the Gaia Stern lecture series, which has been going on for a year now, since a monthly, so we have 12 lecturers. And we invite them, from different universities, also inside Taiwan, outside Taiwan. And here I want to show you one example of the lecture given by one person. Let me see, how can I make this work? How can I? This is a lecture, just 3 minutes, from Professor Liu of UC Berkeley. Can you make the sound louder so we can hear that? There's no sound.
So, this is just a piece of paper. This is just a piece of paper that one of my students shared with me. This student told me that she attended an engineering seminar.
声音没有出来，那边可以出来吗？
So this is just a piece of paper that one of my students shared with me. This student told me that she attended a engineering seminar. Unfortunately, I think it was maybe at Berkeley. She attended a seminar, and some older scientist or older engineer in the audience told her that, you know, women are not good for engineering. So anyway, so I had to explain to her, I had to give her all of these reasons why it's actually good for her to continue, because she was interested in engineering, but somebody was trying to discourage her, saying, you know, girls are not good at engineering. So this is just a piece of paper that my student printed out, because I sent her an email with all these reasons. See, so I gave her these reasons for her to continue to persist in engineering study. So I explained to her that, yeah, everybody knows it's not easy and everyone struggles. It's not only girls, right? If you like to solve challenging puzzles and problems and you like to make things, you should be an engineer. Solutions, so this is what my student did. She highlighted this one. Solutions need to be designed by everyone in order to serve everyone, right? So I gave two examples of that. And actually, engineering is fun. It is satisfying. If you can make something that makes life better for other people, it's very rewarding work. So in semiconductor technology, information technology has transformed the way that people live, work, and play. You know, it's satisfying to know that you contributed to that progress in society. So I just wanted to point out that the student, she added to my list. So you see here, she wrote in her handwriting a lot of more reasons that she thought of that why she should pursue engineering. And so I thought it's just good to point out, because you are not alone. So I hope that you see, you know, even now with all the girls that are together here today, that you are not alone in engineering. You're not the only one in the classroom that is a girl or a woman. Today, there are many women like me who are leaders in engineering. If you are interested, don't let anybody tell you that you do not belong. Your contribution can make all the difference. You can save lives, literally save lives, if you pursue engineering. And one thing I'm trying to do now as Dean of Engineering at UC Berkeley is really trying to change the culture of engineering to make it more welcoming and inclusive of not only women and men, but people from all backgrounds, right? So people from different social and economic backgrounds, different race and ethnicity, different religions, because we need to have a diversity of people working together to create the most innovative solutions to solve many challenging problems in our world today. So global warming, hunger, poverty, these are very complex challenges that require a lot of people to work together to solve, to ensure that we have a healthier, safer, more equitable, and sustainable future for all.
Professor Liu, and she, by the way, she's the first women dean of the College of Engineering of UC Berkeley for the last 150 years. So she's very convincing, I hope, and for us it's a kind of like a brainwashing, so I hope that our girl student will be excited, inspired by her. And not just her, because we have, and then we have monthly series, of lectures by women scientists. And the second thing is that we talk about the general physics, right? Gender gap analysis. This is a project in cooperation with Professor Chandrasekhar Singh of University of Pittsburgh, the physics department. So we are working on this, and we are trying to, with the help of Ministry of Education, we hope to expand this program to include more and more universities to participate. I'm very happy to say that the physics department of National Taiwan Normal University is a part of this project. In fact, the very first part of this project. And then we have this, I told you that Girls for AI Advancement. That's the beginning of the Gaia. The name is Girls for AI Advancement workshop. We have held that for 2 years. So we will continue this. You can see that most lecturers are also women scientists. And they're very happy to be part of this program also. Now, as the second part, which is the survey of science education of gifted students, and in fact, for the so-called science schools. So we are interested, how the other famous science schools are doing. And you can see that there are science schools from South Korea, from Singapore, from China, and from Taiwan. We have Beinu, we have Zhenzhong, both are outstanding science schools. And then we also from Thailand, right? But then this information, we did not, because of pandemic, we are not able to travel. So what we have done is that we interview Professor Ming-Rui Lin, Li Ming-Rui Jiao, and who is the major promoter of science school in Taiwan. So, and very experienced expert in physics teaching also. So I interviewed him, and I just basically, I asked him the question. He gave me an hour long, in fact more than an hour, lectures on the science schools in Asia he has visited, and also including in America. But then the question I placed to him is basically at the beginning, what I said is that, now, can you tell me, Professor Lin, you have been working on the science school, on this gifted student education for so long, right? You are more or less like the godfather in this aspect. But can you tell me, what happened to them? What happened to the elite students? How come I don't see them? I don't see them, doing anything, right? And are we wasting our effort? And so Professor Lin actually, he complained to me all the times. He was himself very frustrated. The reason being that he see a gap in our discontinuity in our gifted education. In summary, he said that basically he said that the problem we have, at least in Taiwan, I suppose this would apply to other Eastern, I would say Asian countries also. Yeah, that's that we lack a way of training in critical thinking. 批判, okay. Our students, they don't ask questions. They don't do nothing. And there's a lack of enthusiasm to do some project, so there's the leadership training. And then once they have encountered difficulty, they just shrink. Yeah, so we say that the lack of resilience. And then, so those are high school students, and once they be able to go into top universities, what happens is that they tend to merge together with other students because they don't want to be called, they don't want to stand out. So this kind of a process called mediocritization. And the professor just leave them alone, because they think that my students are all good, so they're all equal. So this is for top university students. But for students who did not get into the top university, and our society give the impression that they have failed, and they're no good, and they are bound to fail anyway, they're losers. So this is the kind of, once we have this problem is that once going from high school to university, you're going to get into a filter, right? The good one, they tend to be normalized, only normalized. But those have not been able to squeeze into the top rank, they felt that they've been defeated. They lost their purpose in life. I don't know how do you feel, but that's what I have experienced. So therefore, there is a lack of continuing mentorship in college. We have high school top science students, but at the university level, we don't have that. So they lost momentum. They lost direction. So this is one problem that Professor Lin mentioned to me. And I hope also communicate with Professor Carl Wyman of Stanford University. As some of you might know that Professor Carl Wyman, he's also a expert on science education, especially on physics education. In fact, he spent his money from his Nobel Prize in physics to his science education project. So that's rather unique. So I communicated with him. I said, Professor Wyman, can you answer me? Can you give me an answer? And because I said that, look, your country, United States, has been the ranking, country in earning Nobel Prize, right? But how come I look at also statistics? I also look at other statistics. I say that I'm not trying to embarrass him, but that's just a fact. Say, look at there's also statistics about mathematical incompetence. The idea is that the countries with young people between the age of 18 to 19 to 29, 18 to 29, they have to struggle with mathematics, adding, subtraction, multiplication, and you can see that America actually is the leadership. Isn't that interesting? I said it's a contradictory, isn't it? Right? And in fact, I should mention to you, America has an illiteracy of 15%. You cannot imagine. There are people, 15% of American population could not read or write. That's our imagination. But then I said, how can you win so many Nobel Prizes? Isn't that a question we should answer, we should look at? And he said, yeah, I hear you, I heard you, and I pay attention to this problem because I have traveled to some Asian countries, Japan or Singapore, so he talked to the educators there also. So then he wrote me back. He said, I gave you some analysis of him on the situation based on the data he had. I mean, he's a scientist, so he also used data. He said, so you have this 1 billion students from the K to 12 learning of science from the Asian country like Japan, Taiwan, Singapore. They score very high, much higher than students in the US, right? Great. However, there's another piece of data that people, corrected, that we usually ignore them. In Taiwan, we just don't care about that data, that piece of information. That is the response to a question that is approximately like, how interested are you in studying science? Or, how much do you like studying science? The responses to that question are just the inverse to the measure of performance. That means the students in the Asian countries that he had looked at, including Singapore and Japan, by implication Taiwan also, indicate lower interest in science than most other countries, and much lower than in the United States. That means we try to produce our best students and train them without interest in science. And how can they do well in their future? Isn't that something that our Ministry of Education should pay attention to, right? But we never pay attention to that point. And that is the time we should look at that. So I just draw a diagram showing that from what Professor Carl Wyman and from what Professor Min Rui said to me, I said, maybe in the coordinate in the world of achievement, scientific achievement or academic achievement, you have the two coordinates. One is interest, motivation. One is talent, how skillful, how good you are, right? But then you have to combine two to reach a point. That point is where you could achieve achievements. But if you have only talent and no interest, you just go that way, You never do anything good. You have only interest and no skill, no calculus, no physics, and you don't go anywhere either. Right? So I think that in our education system, we should look at that. We should produce students with a great skill, academically brilliant, but also what? Also with interest, motivation, and how to do that. So here comes the meeting. So your meeting, I thought there will be answers from you. I'm looking for answers from experts here. But then because of the prepare for this talk, and I think that I should have asked someone's advice first. And the person I ask, is actually my in-house expert. Can I help? The in-house expert is actually my daughter, Anita, right? The reason I ask her is that I know that there's about her second daughter, Phoebe. And I know that Phoebe is not particularly academically gifted. Why? Why can I tell that? Because she hasn't learned to speak Chinese either. Right? We have tried to teach her Chinese, but she hasn't really been able to do that. But then I've been hearing from my daughter Anita that kept on telling me that once or twice or 3 times that Phoebe is gifted. So I'm curious. I said, can you tell me why do you think Phoebe is gifted? And I asked her for an interview. That's her answer. Yes.
What else did I say? Oh, 你问什么？你说
The percentage.
Percentage of what?
I mean, so-called giftedness.
Her not gifted in terms of academics, okay, at this stage. She is gifted in her creativity, in her sensing and intuition, and in her curiosity. What else did I say? Oh, 你问什么？你说
The percentage.
Percentage of what?
I mean, so-called giftedness.
In Phoebe?
Not Phoebe. I mean, kids like Phoebe. I mean, do you mean?
Oh.
Yeah.
It's very high.
Very high. I mean, everybody's like that.
Not in terms of artistic outward creativity, but everybody has the potential to be that creative. All children. And even adults.
Yeah, but then what's so special about Phoebe then?
She's special in the sense that she's expressively and outwardly creative, curious, and acts on her intuition.
Give examples.
For example,
Climbing trees.
she expresses her abilities in the mode of writing, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. And the mode of storytelling and engagement of other people. It's spontaneous, expressive, and gives the reader and the person who experiences it a almost visceral experience. She's very 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, yeah, 6-dimensional, whatever you want to call it. Okay.
So that to me is a revelation, because I have never thought that the giftedness can be described that way. I always thought that you're number one in your class, right? You got always A and A+, and you're gifted. But not in a way that you look at Phoebe. That's how Phoebe would appear from time to time. She just loves to draw. And she's very curious, like in the left lower picture. I took that picture because one time I was walking on the road with her, and she saw a little insect on the roadside. She immediately kneeled down and looked at it, examined it closely, you know. So she did that very often. And, and let me see, there's another one. Yeah, and this is another picture taken of Phoebe in front of the Museum of Natural History, which is a memorial celebrating the debate of Huxley on the origin of man. And I think she's trying to demonstrate the linkage between human and an ape. Yeah. Then you might want to know that this is a very interesting example. How about her cousin, which is Binky? And Binky, I could tell you that Binky, in spite of her mother's persuasion, wanting her to study high energy physics at the very beginning, she just refused. Her interest is more in dancing. Yeah. And she kept her interest since she was born, more or less. And that basically summarize what Anita said. Even though Anita is not expert on giftedness, but from what she said, basically I would gather that giftedness not necessarily academically high achiever. But curiosity is one important character. And creativity, and perhaps storytelling, and insight is very important, as we will see later. And thinking had to be non-linear, not linear thinking, okay, outside the box. Another important thing is that many children or adults are gifted in different ways. Yeah, and that so this is what I learned from Anita. And comes to this meeting, and because the time very short, I'm not able to study volumes of papers or books. So what I had done is that I just look at some of the interviews or short notes by some of the speakers here. And as you can see that there's also, you have just heard this very interesting talk by Professor Dennis Hong, who's himself a master magician, a master chef, and a fantastic person. And another is a master painter from Thailand. Yeah. So those are very good examples of creativity. But then what I did is that I took notes of the several speakers' work, and including Professor Robert Sternberg interview of him, and then there's also an interview of Professor Albert Ziegler, and then there's also a note, a report written by Professor Wood Sack. Yeah. So those are the three things, I try to make a story, to say that how the giftedness should be viewed in a different light. That is for myself. There's two types of giftedness. Firstly, that's what we have been, very much concentrated on is the academically giftedness, high IQ, right? But there's another kind of giftedness, which is creatively giftedness. Now I use the color and use the black cat, tell you that where the source of those information I have gotten. Like this one is from Professor Usak. And then from Professor Sternberg, he was saying that indeed, there are two kinds of intelligence. One kind is conventional intelligence, namely, is your memory and analytical abilities. You did your math very well, right? But there's another kind of unconventional intelligence, means creativity. Yeah, there's another kind. And importantly, which we should remember now is that according to Professor Sternberg, there's many bright and academically gifted young students see things black and white. And because they always think that anything has an answer to it, a solution to it. And that's what they have been taught. And it's very difficult for them to think that there could be things that, without clear answer. And those are the, so to say, difference between linear thinker and non-linear thinker. And on our hand, the creative students, they are what? You consider them as free thinkers who can think outside the box. So we talk about thinking outside the box, but the question is that do we try to cultivate them or not? Yeah. And they could generate many interesting ideas from that. And about critical thinking and insight, the difference is that when people thinking that there's only one way of doing things, but for creative people, they could think that there are other ways of doing things, or not. There's no sure way to do one thing. And the four characteristics, according to Professor Usak, that includes imagination, curiosity, emotional intensity, insight, and personality. Okay. For insight, this part is important because according to Professor Sternberg, from his study, from his experiences, that many of the insightful students are not those who are the highest in IQ. Okay. And people who make a real difference to the world are often those who are the most insightful. So if you use this combined tool, you see that those smartest people are not necessarily those who will make the difference to the world. Those who are in the number one in the class, doesn't have to be, they not necessary, and most often they do not make a difference. One should say that. Instead, the personal parameters like motivation and personality are more important to life success, or one should say that scientific achievements, than cognitive variables. And in our education system, we tend to emphasize very much the cognitive variables, namely the IQ. Yeah. But it turns out that not necessarily the most important things. So finally, Professor Alfred Ziegler, he emphasized very much that the importance of mentoring system, because all this, is kind of learning and experience transmission. So he talked about in his interview, perhaps in his lectures also, he talked about it's important to have mentoring system, and we should have, and many often our parents don't realize that it's not like Professor Dennis Hong, Professor Dennis always try to discover things in his son, but then our parents might tend to say that this is no good, that is no good, yeah. So we should have actually workshops for parents, even teachers, to identify gifted students. But in what sense? In the creative giftedness, not necessarily academic giftedness. And then for those, we should have a mentoring system, and particularly, for instance, for gifted girl students from the point of view of gender gap. So then finally, the giftedness is not to be decided in high school or primary school, especially in high school. That is, that children are not simply gifted or not gifted. I think you heard about this first say theory of Professor Oakset yesterday. There are various types of giftedness, according to Professor Sternberg also from his lecture. And the giftedness is not say that, no, you are gifted, then that's it. But it's basically it's a process. It could change with time. And for instance, like this is the main theme of our study. That is children from conventional background, basically, for instance, from poor family, they tend to be discriminated, even though they're gifted, but they're not recognized, or they're in a disadvantage. So you heard about Professor Alfred Ziegler's talk on the environmental effect on giftedness. So that's one thing that we should really pay attention to. And then finally, many children, like ourselves, in our own education system, many students identify as gifted, become very ordinary adults, because they are brilliant students, not necessarily they will become brilliant scientists, guaranteed to be. On our hand, many gifted adults, many gifted scientists, they are not considered to be gifted at the beginning. I think you will nod your head too, right? Yeah. So I think this gives us confidence, you know, in our society also. But don't just put all the eggs in one basket, right? And so from what I said, you know, there, so this kind of echo, you know, Anita's very brief statement. You know, I interviewed her only for 5 minutes, and that's what she said. She said, "Oh, giftedness, using Phoebe as a sample. She doesn't have to be an academic high achiever. At least she said, as a mother, she said, not at this point in time. Hopefully, she will be, yeah. But she's curious. She's artistically creative, already appearing, and she loves to tell stories because she loves to read books, and she has insight. Okay, she has intuition. She doesn't follow the linear way, but she thinks that her mother said it's a 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 6-dimensional. Yeah. But the most important thing, because Anita is a early childhood educator, she insists that many children, they are gifted but in different ways. And also, you know, that even adults, they could be gifted from time to in different stages of their career. So finally, that we have to answer the call of Ministry of Education, that troubleshooting, yeah, and of course we mentioned many things, but practically, I think that we are only aiming at now today at the issue of a gender gap. It's impossible in a year or two, or even 10 years. I would hope so, you know, in 20 years maybe, we could turn some of the billion students into Nobel Prize winners. But that takes a lot of work. Yeah, it takes a lot of work and a lot of changes. But then the easier thing is that we are already doing with our project is on the gender gap. So we would recommend to the Ministry of Education that we should set up some program to help, you know, our women scientists. Like the one from United Kingdoms, they have a program called Sustain, because they find that at different levels, at different stages, women scientists or researchers tend to drop out. They call it leaky pie effect. And so the United Kingdom, the Royal Society realized this point. Somehow for the last 5 years, they pay much attention to this. So they have this program called Sustain. I think that we should follow this example. So what we are doing is that we would try to have a program or a forum for senior women scientists, researchers in leading position, to talk about many things, including scientific leadership. Yeah, and hopefully that will generate some changes. Of course, for the younger ages, like the early career researchers, and I want also to point to the attention to the Ministry of Education, like for the Royal Society, they also have a program to provide support to the mostly female students, female young scientists. Yeah, I think that is something that our Ministry of Education can do not with too much difficulty, but needs some convincing. That's all. I hope that will happen. And I think that we are already doing, which is a mentoring program. Now we have for physics, we have high school students. We match them to professors in a university and research institutes, to have them, you know, have a team of mentees. And we hope that, you know, this will be successful. If it's successful, we could try to think of expand it to other disciplines like biology or chemistry or other disciplines. But then for this program, mentor system, I should take this opportunity to thank Professor Chen Zhigu, you know. Thank you so much, because you are actually the mentor of our mentor program. Without your help, you know, we will never really get off the ground. Yeah, thank you so much. And of course, if it failed, I would blame it on you also. Yeah. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. then we would have a high school leadership program, yeah, and to more or less to compensate for the lack of training in competence, increase the students. I think that our students somehow after K to 12, they tend to lack. At least I'm at university, I think that our students lack in confidence. They lack confidence in making mistakes. They think that everything they have to be right, which is not right, which is not correct. If you don't break things, as Professor Dennis Hong said, you don't make things, right? Don't produce things. And we have to introduce that spirit into the students, yeah. Not everything has to be right. And that they have to be responsible, knowing that they have to, like Professor Dennis Hong is a very good example. And he said that day and night they work very hard because what? Because they want to do good things to the society. They want to take responsibility to society. So that's a very important message we have to bring to our students. So in summary, so this I just introduced you to some of the things we have been doing with our program, TTSS. And finally, just to carry off, I want to make a quote of George Bernard Shaw. And this is one quote that I always remember. I like it very much. He said that the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. Think about that. Isn't that true? Isn't very true, right? If you believe that we can change that a little bit, change the code a little bit, paraphrase it into what? Into this. The academically gifted man, that's what we are training in our high school, our science school. The academically gifted man adapts himself to the world. The creatively gifted one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the creatively gifted man. And I hope that if you're convinced, then think about that, because those are the most valuable assets of our society, are those creatively gifted students, persons, not those always getting high IQ, yeah, and number one in the classes. And thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for the very insightful speech from Professor Ye. I'm wondering if our colleagues, our audience, have any questions or comments or remarks. Or I'm wondering if our colleagues online will have any questions or. Okay. So, Professor, perhaps you can read the questions online and may you pick some to answer.
Yeah. But it's asking Professor Hong's presentation. But then maybe I could ask the president. You could make some comment.
I'm very pleased that when you talk about the process that you try to help the gifted student in the future, and you stress about the psycho-emotion more than academic, because what happening in around the world this time is not our product. I can say, but the former people's product is terrible, because they encourage the student only academic be better and beat other people. And our federation has create the first declaration in Bangkok, because in Bangkok we had a conference in 2002, that right after the 9/11. So more than 52 representatives from other countries around the world has signed, including Prime Minister of Thailand and Minister of Education from New Zealand, and the President of World Council, and so on. Many important people have signed on agreement. What we call is Bangkok Declaration is the first declaration to make agreement, to make a new way of nurturing giftedness. You have to be good and help other people, like all keynote speaker, especially Dr. Ye had mentioned several times about the importance of being to understand others, to be good instead of only academic. And this is, I'm very appreciate, and I am thrilled when you mention about how you groom those students in the future. And we believe if you can see that all keynote speakers say the same way. So it means that now we concern about good quality of human being instead of only academic, like 50 years ago. The world leader of now, maybe they are the production of former education that train them to be a beater, a winner, and take more advantage to other country, to other people, and focus to themselves, focus to their country first. That's very selfish way to think. And I'm thankful for Professor Ye for your presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for President Nuth Wang. And any other comments or questions? Personally, I think I want to express my sincere appreciation for Professor Ye's keynote speech, and I also have two comments. The first one is that I am really impressed with and moved by your enthusiasm of promoting children's or students' talent by your very serious concern of the development of women and different types of talents. So, although you are very excellent researcher in astronomy, but you are also concerned with the development of children's talent, and you want to cultivate different types of giftedness. I think this is a very good role model for not only scientists but also for educators. And the second one is that I want to echo you with some of your opinions, because last week I had a press meeting. In that press meeting, I revealed some information about the survey results of the TARDIS. TARDIS is an international survey of around 45 countries of teachers' opinions or their experience in teaching. And I compared teachers' efficacy of teaching in several countries like Taiwan, Australia, and the United Kingdom, and the US, and Japan. And we found that Taiwanese teachers, compared with the Western countries such as Australia and the United States, they have much lower confidence for promoting students' critical thinking and the competence of problem solving. For example, around 75% of Taiwanese teachers said that they are confident that they can arrange appropriate teaching materials or teaching methods to enhance their students' critical thinking and problem-solving skills. However, those statistics in countries such as Australia and the United States are much higher, around 90%. So I think not only for the gifted education, but also for the ordinary education, Taiwan should be more focused on how to enhance teachers' competence of how to teach or how to enhance students' more higher competencies, such as problem solving or critical thinking or creative thinking. So I think this is one of the directions we need to be more focused in our government or for our teacher. So anyway, thank you for your presentation, and I think let's thank Professor Ye again, okay?
Thank you, Professor Song, and thank you, Professor Yip, for the very inspiring speech.